Flame on! How's everybody doing tonight? I'm here with my very special guest, Pikashades. How you doing, buddy?
I'm I'm awake.
I really appreciate you coming on. I know it's early over there. It's got to be like what? It's right at 7 a.m. over there in where you're at.
6:09 according to my computer. Uh, on the monitor's right, left lower corner, it says 6:09.
And if you're just now joining us, this is the sequel or part two to a recent collab Pikashades and I did around shelf title Gone Bad 1 with John Kent with Tevia Smoka, as well as my Super Sons retrospective, or is Super Sons a dead brand? Those were very long yet very intriguing discussions. Both of you guys are welcome on my channel, and hopefully vice versa. But this is also a follow-up to what Pikashades, if you want to promote it right quick, your recent Under the Red Hood retrospective.
Yeah, or more like about Jason Todd trilogy. Like I made 3 videos on Jason Todd, his original run leading up to his death in A Death in the Family, the middle ground on Batman's experience reflected in Batman Hush storyline, and then in the Under the Hood and the animated adaptation with the red added to it. I have all 3 videos on my channel, and the description might as well have a link to it and to those videos if you put it there when this goes up.
Oh, definitely. I'll be, if I can't get them in the cue card right here, I will definitely have them in the description of the video.
Yeah.
I ain't gonna do you dirty like that, Pikashades. I ain't gonna do you dirty like that. But a quick summary of shelf title Gone Bad. Shelf titles are pretty much titles that have no larger impact on the wider run and are usually made for like a quick sales gimmick, a publicity stunt, or a rare case of spite by the editorial staff. Spider-Man. Excuse me. But we're not here for that travesty. That's a video in of itself.
Yes.
Oh. Yes, oh, okay. We're here on Tim Drake Robin. Now, I'm a 90s kid, late 90s, early 2000s. So Tim Drake is my Robin. Damian Wayne has grown on me in recent years, but Tim Drake was my generation's Robin. I'm gonna just be honest. But even so, the reason it's a shelf title, the reason Tim Drake, the Robin of a generation, is getting this segment is because of the Megan Fitzmartin run. You can't pin 5G on this. I can't even do this with a straight face. Pete can back me up here.
Yeah.
Oh God, the cringe.
Pretty much, if you wanna talk about because I started it or rereading it like a week ago, and I finished it yesterday because, well, Spider-Man 2 was in the middle. I played that, and I was more enjoying that more. And none of the stories in that 10 issue run or series, none of it connected to the other stories that were going on at the same time. Not in whatever is happening in the Tom Taylor's Nightwing series, or in a Batman series that Chip Zdarsky is writing, or pretty much any other stories that are going on. Even that series about Tim Drake by Pikashades Martin, it might as well be like one of those YA novels that the DC put out about with younger characters with different or same but different, but still somewhat same character.
I am not Starfire, Gotham,
like that, or the Bruce Wayne Nightcrawler,
Night Runner, something like that.
Yeah, like those YA novels that DC made a couple of years ago. It might as well be like that, or Gotham Academy, or something like that. But at least it was trying to make the bare minimum of being set in the status quo continuity, without referencing anything about it in it. So, or sure, there were some shout outs, but those were, again, like bare minimums. It was like just the DC Pride special and and that's
And
about.
And quick disclaimer before we move on, optics is a thing, trends come and go. You do you. But if you do not have an engaging story, if you cannot follow it through to where it hooks your audience long term, emotional investment, and money and profits, then you're just writing a glorified fanfic at that point. I hate to be that guy. I just got to be honest.
Yeah, and
I,
what stories even were in the series? Like there was the first 4 issues, I think, were about Clayface wannabe calling häntä itseään into Moriarty. Then there was like in the middle was that one date episode or date issue where they were about Bernard's parents, and then there was that then those latter issues where something about Batwoman and Robin getting caught, kidnapped, and Bernard leading the Bat family to his rescue.
and I think we need to go ahead and rip the band-aid now. If you are going to be sentimental about the Tim and Steph breakup, even with the 5G setup, it's an easy fix. Like, have a filler issue where Damien is somewhere across the world leading up to his solo series with the League of Lazarus. Stephanie, after the events of Joker War, wants to go after him or at least show some concern. Tim is just relishing being Robin again, reliving his glory days after being in Damien's shadow for 5 years. It leads to a huge spat, and then it leads to an ultimatum. Tim calls her bluff, and they end up breaking up. Even if it's only a couple of panels, hell, 2 pages. Like, I came up with this in the span of a few seconds. Like, it is not that hard.
Yes, even in the 1993 series leading up to Batman RAP, they had a breakup of sorts. They still continued to work together, but whatever relationship they had, that was more or less put on hold, and that was done because of skewing priorities and having different understandings of the issues, and Stephanie breaking Tim's trust about what Batman was going through during Batman RAP.
Pretty much. And Tim and Steph have had breaks in the past. Every post-adolescent relationship does to some extent. I won't refute that, but you're trying to tell a story. Okay, now this was editorial, trying to strike lightning in the bottle twice. We could play optics all day. But even so, this led to virtually no payoff and a very, very lackluster story. At least with Tom Taylor in Adventures of John Kent, I can't believe I'm defending this series,
Ugh.
but at least in Adventures of John Kent, you can make the argument that Tom Taylor didn't want to break the canon of injustice, so he was playing it very safe. At least he took some consistency and continuity into account. Granted, I wouldn't have sent John to Injustice. I wouldn't have done it. But hey, you needed a hook to sell your rebranded mini pity series. You did what you had to do.
Yeah, except that considering how it was just John going to the Injustice universe, it might as well have been adventure of John Kent instead of adventures.
Hey, but at least John was the center focus instead of just being okay. Because let's be honest, Son of Kal-El was just Jay Nakamura's story. The main conflict was Jay Nakamura. Jay Nakamura wanted revenge on Bendix for the post anti-metahuman contingencies and government experiments. John was just along for the ride. He was the namesake, and I believe Axelrod in their Hot Girl series is in a similar situation, if I remember correctly. Just write another Galaxy comic. Like, seriously. I'm sorry, Pete. I didn't mean to cut you off.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, it's pretty that the main character is a supporting. The named main character is the supporting character, and the supporting character is the sneaked up on bait and switch main character.
Pretty much. But even so, I barely remembered Fitzmartin's Robin until relatively recently. I'm like, you got the art Rosimo or Rosmero. I apologize if I butchered his name. Everyone has their own artistic style. This guy cannot write the Bat Family. He draw the Bat Family. He just can't. At least not with that style. Like, These first 4 issues were freaking atrocious, man. Like I barely got through it the first time around. Like,
Yeah, and not to mention, it was like it was rushing through it. Like compared to some other work that he has drawn, at least those had some kind of style and you could say artistic quality. Like for
yeah,
example, the Batman and the Shadow, the first Batman Shadow crossover that
okay.
Scott Snyder wrote for him to draw. At least there was some quality, and you could recognize the characters, and that he was taking his time and to put quality into it.
So I just don't know what was going. Now, deadlines is a headache for any profession. Now, I don't know if Rosmo was just having a bad couple of weeks, or editorial really wanted to market a LGBTQ plus Robin, and they just wanted the series out as soon as possible. I don't
Yeah,
know those details,
that's
but
probably it.
but even so, that was not Rosmo's best series. That was not his best work. Pika and I we've seen him do better,
Yeah.
and I have not. And even when you get to the whole Tim and Bernard, you taking key elements and a supporting character from Chuck Dixon's run, Chuck Dixon, and now people have life experiences. People come out later in life. That's understandable. But at the end of the day, doesn't this plot remind you of Harley Quinn the animated series, particularly season 2?
Well, you'd have to, if you have seen it, it might. Okay, well,
Because think about it, because Tim's obviously, because if we're factoring what I'm talking about, now they never actually showed on panel why Tim and Steph broke up. They just had another break, and then Bernard confesses his feelings, and okay, I'm experimenting. I might as well give the guy a shot. So even if we factored all that, Tim is clearly rebounding with Bernard, and Stephanie's miffed about the whole thing, but she's not gonna risk, but she's gonna put on a brave face about it. We then get a huge time skip to where she's essentially over it. So there's, or at least over the initial heartbreak from the breakup. So there's no conflict whatsoever.
yeah,
And
that's
it just
pretty much
looks,
what some people actually would want to see. Like how to like the actual character development and getting broken up and getting over it over it. You don't just skip the getting over it part. You show them getting over it. That's how you actually show a strong characterization.
I agree. I completely agree. And even more so, this, because again, even if I just came up with this a few seconds ago, it wouldn't be that hard to piece together. You could actually retcon and show a flashback sequence like, okay, Tim wanted to be Robin again. He wanted to relive his glory days, i.e., Connor from his Superboy Man of Tomorrow miniseries from the Round Robin contest. It's essentially the same story, but you understand where Tim's coming from, both in terms
Yeah.
of his character, his brand, the fact that Damien's pretty much snubbed him for the latter half of a decade, both
Mhm.
in and out of publication history. And it's very understandable now. And the only reason him and Steph break up is because Steph needs openly calling him out. Now, I'm not going to go into the whole 5G setup, City of Bane. That story, there's probably more than enough videos on Shadow War, City of Bane, all of it. All you need to know is that it was editorial. It was the setup for 5G, and Damien was set up to be a villain slash anti-hero. They fell through on that. Damien was pretty much scrapped until he was readapted for Future State Gotham, and they've completely deviated at this point. That's all you need to know about that. If they end up bringing Alfred back, I'd be awfully surprised. But because if I go into City of Bane and the 5G setup and the Bleeding Cool articles, we'd be here all day.
Uh,
But to make it a long story short, Tim and Steph, hell, there was one time where Tim was pretty much the DC's Peter Parker trying to have his cake and eat it too, and it literally bit him in the ass.
yeah, that's pretty much what was intriguing about the whole Chuck Dixon's 1993 series, because it was Tim balancing out the superhero act with his it was high school life, and having his father being in the dark about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was the intrigue. That was the seeing him try to balance it out, seeing him try to keep it hidden, and then when it eventually blew into his face, that was something that had built up expectations. People were it was hundreds of issues that status quo before Jack Drake learned about what his son was doing.
And even and spoilers for an almost 20-year comic, but Jack Drake, even after he threatened to expose the Bat Family if Bruce didn't fire Tim from the role, he doesn't get a self-sacrifice or anything like that. He ends up Captain Boomerang pretty much stumbles upon the Drake residence in a drunken stupor, and Jack, trying to defend himself and defend his family, tries to fight him. Like, this is a supervillain. He's clearly intoxicated and not thinking straight. Just let the bum sleep it off, and you can shove him off your porch in the morning. There's really no reason for you to pick a fight.
Yeah, that's identity crisis.
But hey, it made for good drama, so who am I to complain?
Yeah, Rax Morales art also, at least it looked cinematic.
Oh, definitely. I'm not refuting that at all. But as is, there's really no saving the Fitzmartin run. There's really no saving it because a lot of it is just nonsense, and more goddamn nonsense.
Yeah, like something that you really expect from a crack fic or a web comic that is trying to have a comedic setup and payoff, or essentially joke moments. Like for example, when ever since they decided to push Tim into a closet and pull him out of it, they even had that some kind of ridiculous moment where some of his neighbors stumbled upon him barely dressed and Robin costume, and instead of thinking, "Oh my God, Tim Drake is Robin," he's just, "Oh my God, Tim Drake is sleeping with Robin." That's pretty much like something a crack fic or a Tumblr fanfic would set up would be written as.
And now I'm willing to give new generation creators a chance, but y'all aren't even trying at this point. Wait, okay. Wayne Family Adventures, DC official licensed fanfic, completely appealing to the fandom. Wayne Family Adventures did more than y'all. And all they did was like one or two filler issues with Tim going on a date and then fully recognizing that he ghosted and did Stephanie dirty. That was it. And that is still more characterization than the actual main continuity, actual direct editorial could be bothered with.
Yeah, it's like what do they want to write about? The superhero conflict, action and drama, or the slice of life, the life stuff? It's like Wayne Family Adventures managed to do this while doing the bare minimum with this. But the Team Drake series, it really just wanted to do some of this and throw some of this in there.
Like, there is such thing as a balance. It wouldn't be that hard to do. If you want to sprinkle some melodrama, you would have had it in abundance with Stephanie still bitter about the breakup, how Tim ghosted her, how Tim wanted to relive his glory days after Damian quit and is traversing around the world. Yeah, but in that scenario, you have to openly acknowledge that Tim is actually in the wrong, which Wayne Family's Adventures did. See what I did there?
Yeah.
Like, seriously, this is basic writing techniques, and I'm not trying to, because the best way I could explain this, because I really just want to skip to Bendis Young Justice and be done with this segment. The best way I could say it's not even lightning striking the bottle twice. This really was a shelf title gone bad. At least Sonic Kal-El was somewhat redeemable because it was going to have the 5G. It was setting up the 5G for consistency purposes, but was going to deviate anyway. So at least I could say Sonic Kal-El would have had some potential if it didn't get scrapped and rebranded for Adventures of John Kent. but this is unsalvageable. Like this book was barely wasn't even referenced in the larger line. I think the Batgirls comic, which was leftover Fear State material, had one reference to it, and it was just before it was officially announced the Batgirls would get canceled.
Oh, that is just. Like, if it's not even connected to anything, then what's even the point of it? If it's a main continuity title and it doesn't even connect to the main continuity, then what is the point?
Shelf
Yeah,
title.
shelf title, but
Organically, there's no point. Like I can name plenty of examples. Oh, go ahead.
Sorry, that's my alarm clock.
Oh, okay. But there are plenty of examples of shelf titles that at least have some kind of purpose. Even okay, as much as I hate boating this, sorry, I have to go on this tangent. But say what you will about the Adam Glass run, even if it was just for 5G and Damien's Fall from Grace story, at least it had a purpose. At least it had a benefit in the larger line. Yes, it was bad characterization. Yes, it was editorial mandate. Yes, it was supposed to be told in this to lean the characters towards a specific direction when all said and done. But it was consistent with other books. It had a purpose. It had a contained story, and it told it. All Fitzmartin's Robin is just a follow-up from the Batman Urban Legends backup story where a demon cobra cult abducts random Gotham civilians. Tim dons his Robin suit trying to save everyone. Tim and Bernard have a brief team up playing fisticuffs, and they agree to go on a date, which was a direct setup for this book. This really could have just been a mini series and no one would have cared, or at least they wouldn't have cared as much.
Yeah.
But yeah, if we go any further into Megan Fitzmartin's Robin, I'm gonna have an aneurysm.
Oh.
Moving on to the next section, Bendis's Young Justice, i.e., glorify. Now, what did you think about Bendis's Young Justice before I move forward?
That was one of those stories that I would. It was happening at a snail's pace. Like, you could make an argument about the about Fitzmartin's run being a story where nothing happened, but at least there were some gaps between the issues. You could tell that time was moving forward. But in the Bendis series, it was just they go to the Young Justice characters, they reunite, they end up in the Gem world where they meet Connor, who has been there since Flashpoint. Then they get thrown into the multiverse. They go from Kingdom Come to Captain Carrot and the Zugru world. Then they end up in the Earth 3 world, and then they find themselves eventually from there back to the main continuity. In how many issues is that? It's like a third or a half of the entire run.
8 or 9. That's 8 or 9 issues. That entire first arc is 8 to 9 issues. And halfway through, oh god, even Ridley's Robin miniseries for a pot shot at this. Tim finally gets a rebrand, the first real rebrand he's had since the New 52, and it's a duck. Not only it's a duck, but it is a literal generic stealth suit with a brown doo-doo brown aesthetic. No, I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it to myself. I'm not
I'm
screenshotting.
surprised he didn't call himself Mallard.
You know that
actually something I pointed out to you while I was going through it. They were in the Kingdom Come universe before going to the Earth 3, and there they actually saw the Kingdom Come Red Robin costume. That whole thing would have gone a full circle with Tim having seen that costume and decided to take the Red Robin costume back.
It would have been a nice touch. It was right there.
Yeah. Not to mention in the some flashbacks of the, because at least Bendis gave flashbacks on what happened before the series began with Tim and Stephanie, that they met up with Zatanna, and Zatanna helped unlock the memories that were lost during the
Flashpoint.
New 52 to the Rebirth stuff. And if Tim was given his memories back, he could have recognized the Red Robin costume, remember that, hey, I used to go by that name and wear that costume. And Tim could have gone back to being Red Robin.
And he's interchangeable with the names, but that's a separate topic for a different day. And even then, that's pretty much a meta nod to where, okay, we had Richard Grayson, because I got to worry about bots. That's the only reason I'm calling him that.
Okay, yeah.
Richard Grayson used the Red Robin moniker as a rebrand in an Elseworld story coming out of retirement, and we kind of repurposed it, giving it to Tim Drake, but we can't really use Red Robin because Red Robin Yum Burger Joint came out and officially licensed the name. So unless we made a licensing deal with the Red Robin Burger franchise, we cannot market and use the Red Robin moniker in any way. That's a free mascot.
Yeah, that could be a free mascot. Not
take
to mention
the deal.
Take the deal and get that marketing, that kind of marketing, and that marketing money that they would probably be getting from that fast food joint. Not to mention that it would be great if there is no Red Robins in Finland, by the way. I have no idea what kind of food they serve, so it would be. I have no idea if they are good or bad even.
It depends. Depends on who you ask. But still, the marketing alone, it's a Bat family member, a Bat adjacent character, one of the most recognized. Okay, am I psychic? Because I don't even have a business major, and this is like common sense to me.
Huh. Well, it's basically the whole thing that the people in charge are so incompetent that the common sense on regular people is much more superior.
Oh, Jesus Christ. But Bendis' Young Justice, it's very nostalgic, it's very dragged out, and the Drake costume did him no favors. Let's be honest.
And
I can forgive all of it if you just get rid of the costume. It didn't even have to be the Red Robin cowl. If you just scrap the Drake costume altogether, this series would rate a lot higher in my mind. But as is, I just can't. I can barely stand it.
Yeah, not to maybe the slow time frame of how the series went on was a kind of a blessing in disguise, because the story went slow, but the real world time people recognize and call out, yeah, that costume is bad, the name is bad, and everyone's bad, and they were pretty much able to, when they came back to the main DC universe again, Batman pretty much pulled Tim aside and said, your costume sucks.
But as I was saying with the Red Robin moniker, it mostly boils down to commercial licensing, and they can't really use the name unless they specifically work or come to some licensing agreement with the Red Robin's Burger Joint. That's literally the only reason they can't do it. Just give them another name, anything other than Waterfowl, Sparrow, Cardinal, like anything. And then you try to sound all sophisticated like the Drake.
Yeah, it's just that is pretty much even like a worse name than because it is literally his surname. And how many child-friendly superheroes or kids show superheroes are who just have a super first name as their superhero title?
Artemis from Young Justice, but even then, that was ironic.
Well, that might be the one exception that reinforced the rule.
Pretty much. But to get back on track, the Bendis Young Justice run ran for about 18 issues, while Bendis was also contracted on a very controversial Superman run An atrocious Legion of Superheroes book. I still apologize for making you read that to this day, Pika. Jesus Christ.
Yeah, 10 issues just leading up to a John vs. Rogozor.
And it makes sense if you actually go through the Bleeding Cool articles and what 5G was going to be about. Like, I get it. It was for setup purposes. But you didn't even need to factor fan expectation to know this was bad. Oh god, I'm having 2018 flashbacks. Excuse me.
At least you can remember what happened in 2018. I still have a pretty much stressed out amnesia on it because I was working 2 jobs while also going through college.
Same. I was wrapping up my undergrad. But
Were you working nights on the weekend as a restaurant doorman?
I know the feeling, man. I know your pain. I went through something very similar. But even so, Bendis's Young Justice. I mean, I think the whole Wonder comic line pretty much collapsed like right after because you had like Hero for Dial of Hero, which was like a Ben 10 knockoff. You had Wonder Twins, and I may be imagining this. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah,
Please, I hope I'm wrong.
Yeah, but, almost series Bendis was writing at the same time. It was like he was spreading out whatever creativity he had to so many titles. It was like they were trying to go for quantity over quality, so that much that there was pretty much was no quality in it.
Bendis burned himself out, and the quality in the finished product paid the price for it. He burned himself out, even though he's definitely peaked in his old age. Just about any millennial or Gen Z will tell you that. I mean, Gen X will tell you that he's definitely peaked in his old age. But even factoring all of that, like excuse me. But even if you factor all that, it felt like Rebirth in its entirety. Like the whole thing was just a nostalgia trip. It's just that Bendis's Young Justice was just so on the nose you couldn't ignore it.
You could say that Rebirth was like some attempt to it gave DC a quick sales boost.
It did,
but it was but they couldn't keep up with it because they decided to start changing things too much in the middle there.
They I believe Dan DiDio, and he said like we're literally in the same position. We're just on a better term with the fan base as we were when the New 52 kicked off. We are literally just on the opposite side of the spectrum. And Bendis and Dan DiDio, excuse me, is known for not being the biggest fan of legacy characters because it ages the core IPs too much, specifically Batman.
Well, it didn't actually. It depends on how much you wanna. If you wanna, like, what is the the line of how old the characters are allowed to be? Like,
all right, let's.
Superman and Batman, you could say that they are in their mid 40s right now.
Yeah, about 45.
Yeah.
At this point, about 45.
You can say in the mid 40s, Batman started out when he was 26. He has been doing it for 20 years. That's actually something that BVS did right with Ben Affleck's Batman, and he is there, and they managed to build on the history of those 20 years. Like you could say that that a broad strokes of Batman's career happened in those 20 years. Yes, the character is older, but old is not. It's not obsolete. The character there's the history that you need in there when the character is that old. If you want to de-age the characters, that just ends up diminishing the history and not making it work as well anymore.
And I get and now even in Chip Zdarsky's run, we're kind of transitioning with an older Batman who's not exactly in his prime anymore. But even then, 45 is pretty solid. He may not have the same physique as he had, say, back during Nightfall or No Man's Land, like i.e. 10, 15 years ago. But Batman still can hold his own for the most part, at least compared to the norm. So I just don't see 45 as that big of a decline in the grand scheme of things, especially if you already got a big family and a
Mm.
very dysfunctional lovers dispute with the entire city caught in the middle. And when I get to that Gotham War video, Jesus Christ, I'm not gonna have a lot to say about that.
Yeah. At least Batman is not as old as when how Ian Glenn played him in Titans. That's something I can
Which
understand. That's something I could understand if Dan DiDio was concerned about Batman coming across. But they also, some people at DC decided that make Batman that old that he's played by that kind of actor who can't even suit up as the character.
all trying to get out of the Batman license. You wanted to reference Batman, you wanted to allude to Batman, but in your budget, in the budget for your show, you couldn't afford the license.
Mm.
Teen
That's
Titans
what I.
03 got around this by not using the character at all.
Yeah. Not to mention, I brought this up in my I did one video on the on Titan and the first season, and I pretty much compared to it that DC has the movie license for the character, but the TV license is where exactly? Like the previous time when Batman has most of the time when Batman has been used in a TV show, in a live action TV show, has been in the Adam West series. And
Yes.
then we had Gotham, which was on Fox, and now
Yes.
Disney owns Fox. It's basically like you have you have you have the main video game, but can't get the DLC because but someone else has the DLC, but they don't have the main game.
Pretty much. That's a very good analogy. That is a very solid analogy for what's going on here. And I get that, egos clash, competition, fractions ensue, but just don't use them. Let the Titans do their own thing in their own setting. Don't even bring them to Gotham.
Hmm.
Like, so much could have been avoided here. Have Jason go back to Bruce, partner with him on his own. And I just knew that the live action Titan show was going to crash and burn. We all knew that. Not because it was too edgy, too over the top. And it was also during the course correct between the DCEU and what Hamada and Sarnoff were planning. So it's just a product of its time. That's really all I can say about Titans. It's
Yes.
very much a product of its time,
Mm.
for better for worse.
Yes, so much potential wasted because of studio politics and everything else.
Indeed, indeed. But what was I saying? Okay, now I was actually planning a video on this, but I guess we might as well talk about it. The whole Tim Drake versus Damian Wayne debate. First of all, it's not that serious, or at least it's not as big as fan is trying to make it out to be. Damian was not given the Robin moniker when he first debuted. It was after the events of Final Crisis and Batman R.I.P., and Alfred had legal custody over Damian due to Bruce's disappearance / supposed death.
Yeah.
Richard Grayson ended up a mentor to Damian, and Richard wanted this opportunity for Tim to venture into the world, become an adult, rebrand. And that's even if he wanted to continue the hero lifestyle at all, since he was interim CEO, since Tim was already post-adolescent by this point, and Bruce had legally left the company to him. Tim just couldn't appreciate the time because he's like 18 to 19 years old. Bruce had officially adopted him after what happened to Jack. And now you have this, excuse my French here, hell-spawn feral child who was sired in the desert when Bruce was, depending on the version, was not in his right mind at the time. And then he's just boasting like he owns the place. Like doing it. And Richard barely defends him when Damian twists the knife because he wants to be a dick. Sure, he chastised and even scowls at him a couple times, but that's about the most Damian gets.
That's also something that is a story that is much spread out, but in order to explain that to general audiences, it also needs to be compressed into being easier to understand. That pretty much brings the whole thing to the Son of Batman movie. That's probably likely one of the few instances where people were introduced to the character. And that movie pretty much cut out Tim and Jason from between Grayson and Damian. so that you just have there's one Robin and who became Nightwing, and then there was this other kid who was just filling in the role because and everyone else was just well
And even
Putaberus maybe here Hakahid out.
and you could have kept them in. Now, granted, you might not have been able to use Jason during Batman versus Robin because that role would ultimately go to Talon, but you could have referenced him. Hell, Jason was a red herring in Hush with Joker having a throwaway line referencing Death in the Family. And
Yeah.
Tim, you could have gone with the New 52 label since Tim was essentially was in the New 52. Tim was Red Robin from the start in memoriam to Jason. Like you really wouldn't have to change
The
much.
characters could have been in the background. You wouldn't have needed to introduce them there, but they could have been in the background. Like Tim could have been with the Titans, Jason could have been dead, and like I said in my Hush video, Jason could have been so that he was dead, and then he was brought back as a revenant, only to be killed off again, so that he was brought in and and taken out, so that he didn't wear off his welcome in that continuity.
Easy fix. And if you wanted to keep Red Hood around, hell, that could have just been its own story while Damian was with Justice League versus Teen Titans, or at least a 1 year gap between Battle of Trigon and Judas Contract. But again, the 10-year anniversary of the animated film was underway, and that Choose Your Own Adventure ended up being a cash grab, which I knew was gonna happen. But this was the one thing on my wish list for that film. Actually contextualize that Jason was not just this punk street kid that was in over his head. No, he was emotionally compromised from actually getting to interact with his birth mother, who essentially divorced his father and abandoned him. And depending on the New 52 template, in the New 52, she allegedly cut a deal with the Joker to fake her death. So there's a completely different context from Death in the Family that's completely removed, all because of political tensions, or at least political tension the story was based on at the time it was written.
Yeah, it was
just make it a fictional country and no one cares, or the very least.
Yeah, it pretty much is a fictional country now. It went from it was Iran originally. Then it was I brought it up in my video in the video that it was changed in my Finnish translated version into Odradekia, and currently in DC it's pretty much just Gurak now.
Korak, I think I've also heard in one version it was Bosnia, but that could have been from
Bosnia. Well, it was Bosnia Herzegovina in the animated movie, but in the comic it has been changed into being Gurak.
Okay.
And like I also pretty much spoke about this in my Death in the Family video and the Under the Red Hood video. The Death in the Family movie, that could have been, because it was done 10 years later, it could have been to the Under the Red Hood movie what Crisis Core was to Final Fantasy VII.
That is true.
A foregone conclusion story telling the story of Jason, similar to what happened to Zack Fair.
I agree. Wasted potential. And you wouldn't even have to add much. But I guess the fact that Jason was had low life parents who effectively abandoned him. One ended up being killed in prison, and the other supposedly cut a deal with a supervillain to get out of the other's crime debts. That's a little too dark for a PG-7, PG-13 audience.
That would actually be like the movie if they had done Death in the Family. They could have just let's run through it like for fun. Okay. Have the opening be Batman and Jason meeting, then have like the opening credits montage showing all kinds of different adventures, and then like the first act of the story, have that like be the diplomat son, which I brought up in my in the opening for my Death in the Family. They have that the diplomat son happened there, and reveal also that Felipe Garzonas, of the villain of that story, would have been doing dealings with Two-Face, who killed Jason's father. That would cause the drift between him and Batman. And during that drift, he would go to his old family estate, get his old family stuff from the family friend, find his birth certificate, learn about Sheila. The second act could be them trying to find Sheila, going from Charmin Rosen to Lady Shiva, and eventually find Sheila. That's the second act. Jason dies during it, and the third act could be some kind of fix up to the UN incident. Yeah, you can have the incident happen at the UN or at some other place where the Joker is essentially put on and Batman tries to get some kind of justice or bring the Joker down or get some kind of revenge or whatever. And
you would have a continuity error with Shiva allegedly not having a child, but that's because Cassandra didn't debut for another 7 years.
yeah, I brought this up also the video I did with Robert on it's still due to come out, but I brought
Please
up
subscribe.
there that 0 hour could have caused the whole Cassandra to exist because 0 hour happened between Death in the Family and No Man's Land where Cassandra came out.
That could work. I mean, didn't Power Girl give birth to a baby boy during that event, or at least in the aftermath?
Yeah. It was something that happened, and people just ignore it now. But also you could have the you could say that that if Shiva was in the redone or the movie in a movie like that, and they asked about if she has any children, she could just under the influence of the truth serum say that she has a daughter she gave away. That could just be one and done.
A throwaway line, and that would just be it.
Yeah.
But even then, okay, since I have no real other template to go with, since any other animated adaptation is just either amalgamations or the Under the Red Hood movie, let's just do a run through of DeCamu just for fun, an actual with Jason and Tim included. So Flashpoint and Justice League War are just about the same. They don't really factor too much. Son of Batman is where, you know, Slade commits a power play against Ra's al Ghul's compound. Ra's is burned to a crisp and ultimately succumbs to his injuries. Damian is sent to Gotham for his own protection by Talia. And then we have, well, Tim is recently coming back from a mission with the Titans, or at least Nightwing and Corey and Starfire's rebranded version, as we see in a later film, pretty much segueing some early foreshadowing. Tim Drake is like, okay, so what's going on here? Then we get the introduction of Damian, a DNA test to confirm that, yes, Damian is Bruce's kid. And Damian's kind of indifferent. Like he just wants to track down Slade, finish this little power struggle, and get his revenge. Like he really wants nothing to do with them. Or at least this is the way I would interpret it, rather than just making him a brat and have the theme of vengeance be what Damian and Bruce bond over.
Yeah, at least that in the movie's case, I said that Damian was a more likable version in the movie. What maybe the right term that I should have used that he was more tolerable.
Streamlined, but relatable works too. But I would go with his original Morrison incarnation, to where he's kind of a dick, but at the same time, he's an aristocrat. He has very aristocratic values. It's more like Jon Snow in Game of Thrones. Like he knows he's the bastard child. He knows he's not that well favored. So why would Talia send him to Gotham? Why would Talia send him to Bruce to begin with, when he's more than capable of fighting his own battles?
Yeah, and that was also something I complain about. But in the Grant Morrison story, Talia was more of the bad guy, and the whole Deathstroke impersonator. I'm sorry, I just need to call him that.
You refuse to acknowledge that as Deathstroke, don't you?
Yeah, I refuse to acknowledge because it was barely any characterization of who Deathstroke is because even when the character's backstory is dated to Vietnam War and everyone else, the Deathstroke is a former U.S. soldier, a failed family man, and a bastard of a father. That's who Deathstroke, or that's who Slade Wilson is. You can have a Deathstroke.
They turned him into Scar for the freaking Lion King.
Yeah.
That's basically it. Like, of course, that's his actual grandchild. Of course, Damian is going to be favored over you. That's his actual lineage. Now, granted, Damian's only 10. He's not strong enough to really do anything against you, but and even then, even in the DeCamu, we don't have that context. What pushed Slade towards rebelling against the Al Ghuls? Maybe Damien killed Grant in a team up gone awry, or Damien, being petulant and entitled, double crossed Grant and left him to die, and Slade blames Damien for it. And when Slade tried to get retribution, Raish didn't heed it, or Raish
Yeah,
didn't honor it, because
yeah,
Damien's his
that
heir.
could actually be
Grant was
also
out of
possible.
line, and that's just
Yeah,
what happened.
yeah. Not to mention they could have actually tied in Slade's actual backstory to hold to the like his like everything that I brought up in my Judas contract video about his military training, his family history, and everything, that he could have joined the League of Assassins after it, like as a penance or trying to find some kind of purpose in life in there, and then that life ended up getting thrown out the window because of like what you said. Just combine that there, and that would have made him come across more like the actual Deathstroke.
And I feel, especially when you get the Judas contract, and I hate to go off topic, folks, but even when you get the Judas contract, they kind of tried to play into the whole Slade and Robin Nemesis dichotomy from Teen Titans 03. And I appreciate it. And it was a nice touch. I will acknowledge it. It was a nice touch. But it has no context here. You literally have to create a headcanon scenario as to why Slade would be hell bent to form a nemesis with Damien. Even what little we get from Son of Batman is the fact that he could have had a rivalry with Bruce when he trained under Ra's during one of his aliases and conceived Damien. So really, this is really a feud between Deathstroke versus Batman. Damien's just caught in the middle of it by proxy by being Bruce's kid.
Yeah, not to mention the whole thing about in the actual Judas contract, or the build up of Judas contract, he was offered to kill to capture the Titans for Hive, and because they refused to pay him up front, he outright refuses. But in the movie, he's paid after the fact, a very undeathstroke like, and he is thus doing that, going after the Titans only because Damian is one of them. And then Damian is the first one he captures. It's like he doesn't have a personal take in the whole mission anymore. He captures
Other
Damian, does whatever he wants, and he might as well leave the Titans alone. Because even the comic, he said that it's bad for business to go after superheroes unless he had the personal reason with Grant.
Which is true. And if you factor my headcanon, Damien either betrayed or killed Grant in a double cross or mission gone awry, that sets it up perfectly. Yes, it's Slade playing the victim, but he's always done that.
Uh, in the comics,
Like,
he had like a heel realization after the fact, or during the whole thing, or after it was done. But that could also be like was it like true for the character, or was Marv Wolfman just having gotten attached to the character and wanting to bring him back to what he was during the flashbacks that Adeline told Grayson?
very much so, very much so. But as is with Judas contract, as it is, okay, Nightwing is. I'm just going to do a quick synopsis for those who are just curious. Basically, Nightwing and Starfire are taking the next step in their relationship. They're ultimately transitioning with Starfire officially being field leader of the team, while Nightwing takes a step back. And Damien, although is the second most qualified candidate to lead the team, he's not ready quite yet. So it's more of a have your cake and eat it too type situation. Grayson takes the next step in his relationship. Tara ultimately gets redeemed and joins the light of the heroes, and Damien gets taken down a peg for his long-term progression, only for the whole thing to literally bite Grayson in the ass. With Tara doubling down despite the truth staring her in the face, being betrayed for it, and then her atonement / sacrifice in the end. And no bad mouthing, no catharsis from Damien. We just cut straight to black after the epilogue with Kevin Smith podcast. Even if you gave Damien the Jericho role, now I get it, he's ultimately getting the Jericho role and the two team up. Hell, you could have debuted Wonder Girl there during the 1 year gap. Just say Tara and Wonder Girl debuted and joined the Titans around the same time. Now, older fans wouldn't have cared, but at the very least, it would have made a decent red herring for the screenplay.
Yeah, Wonder Girl was pretty much just introduced in the epilogue as in a cameo, and she wasn't even given much characterization in the later movies either. not to mention I also commented this because she in the comics Donna is likely more like a same age as Grayson and Starfire, and it was more of a that's one thing that Titans did right. It was more like a sister best friend kind of a brother sister best friend like a relationship that Grayson has with her, and that's pretty much just younger teen hero
Yeah.
brought in to just be filled with imagination and fanfics.
And if you remember my Comics League's interview with Sam Liu last week, he alleged that James Tucker and the DeCamu team had a few more projects planned, such as Teen Titans 3, Justice League Dark 2. Now, I'm not saying for you shippers out there we would have gotten a Damie Ray, Donna Troy love triangle or anything like that. But at the very least, there was more to the story before the DeCamu was ultimately cut short. That's all I'm saying. And even with that, it's just so much opportunity. Like they pretty much, I'm not going to say they streamlined Grant Morrison's work, but they condensed it enough to where a casual audience can understand. But Robin and Grayson don't have a brotherly relationship. It just ends up that way because Grayson wasn't ready to be a father or father figure at the time. So, okay, so basically imagine Qui-Gon and Anakin from Star Wars if Qui-Gon survived. That's pretty much Nightwing and Damian Wayne Robin's dynamic. That's pretty much it. Or at the very least, a reverse Obi-Wan and Anakin. At the very least. But back to the original fandom debate, Tim and Damian, at least in most depictions, hated each other in the beginning. When really, it wasn't even that serious. Okay, I'm not downplaying anything. I'm just stating the obvious. Tim, being an adolescent and edgy teenager, patronizes Damian for being a 10-year-old. Damian warns him, "Do not patronize me or I will break your face." Tim continues to patronize him.
Yeah, in that case, it could be like, yeah, Damian saw that in the comic, the whole relationship was like Damian saw his birthright in being Batman's son, and Tim was someone who was given a new family, a new father, and everything else in the aftermath of 1 year later.
Yes,
and pretty much Damian's existence came to shake it up and pretty much take away the new status he was given.
Basically, Tim picked. Oh, go ahead, Pika.
Yeah, and Tim actually made two attempts to be friendly with Damian. In the first time, he just it was the "I'll break your face" response. Then when he tried again, this was like right during the whole. What was it? Was right after Damian had sneaked out of the manor and killed a one-off super villain. That's
the spook, I think it was. The ghoul, the spook, something like that.
Killed a super villain, and Tim tried again to be friends with him, and that olive branch got with the whole thing, and Damian tried to kill him essentially. Well, not they fought.
You're Batman's partner. Father acknowledges you as his partner, as his Robin, which means there's some merit to what you're doing. Therefore, it's very likely you'll survive this. That's basically Damian's mindset. And the way I'm saying this, I'm trying not to play into the feral mean. I'm acting strictly within the writer's zeitgeist. Damian acts in a way to where he's an aristocrat. He has a specific view on things. He's pretty much done everything that's asked of him. And now he's being shifted off to his father, who has a completely different outlook, and it's a complete paradigm shift. He had no preparation, no real context or any idea what to expect. Not everyone's gonna handle a situation like that gracefully, least of all a child. And Tim definitely didn't make the situation any better by letting his insecurities about Damian being Bruce's blood son get the better of him, even if it was in a very passive aggressive way. Because all he did was get sucker punched off a T-Rex and left for dead for his trouble.
Yeah. Well, he also fell to a glass cabinet, so there's also that added fall damage.
That is true.
Not to mention he was left to lie in the glass and the hard floor, while Alfred was locked up in his room.
Hey, I'm not saying the kid made a good first impression. I'm just saying the kid's resourceful.
Yeah, there's also that kind of that Grant Morrison apparently had also in some interview that I was able to dig up from my Son of Batman video, where Grant Morrison apparently had also created Damian to be killed off eventually, and he died during the Batman Incorporated series.
But Leviathan, yes, but
Yeah,
yes,
yeah, but because Morrison had created Damian as a member of Batman's mythos and supporting characters, the character is so owned by DC Comics, and due to popular demand, people having
popularity.
grown attached to the character, they just gave Peter Tomasi to the job to write a resurrection story.
And after a few years and a modern rendition of the Super Sons, which I believe its newest edition omnibus comes out today or
Yeah,
tomorrow at the time of this recording. But even so, they quickly realize that there's not really too much we can do. This character's kind of stagnant. Like, we can't keep him the same bratty 10-year-old, but we don't want to go too edge lord. And even now with Joshua Williamson's renditions on Damian's solo series and Batman versus Robin, you're just turning him into Tim. Like, let's be honest.
yeah, yeah. Like you could try to justify it on the way that Damian is growing a character growing up. He was 10 when he was introduced, and now he is
14, 15, something around there.
yeah, about 14, 15, like in high school age, and he is put into high school because that would be like that. But is Joshua Williamson even interested to write Damian in high school? Because he went there, attended like bare minimum of attendance before and left before he was even introduced to his classmates, and then went to being Robin again. Like, is that like true characterization, or is that an excuse to not draw or not write anything of Damian out of his element there?
Now, that ultimately depends on the editor and how the finished product gets approved.
Hmm.
Now, they are throwing some red herrings about this Shush character. Like, is it a is it Shush or Shush? Like the
Let's go
noise
with
or
that, like shush,
okay, Swoosh, Swoosh.
shush.
Okay, okay, thank you. Basically, and then you got Gotham War crammed in the middle. Like, just say it takes place after Batman goes through an emotional spiral from everything that's happened prior to this point. The Zernar persona takes over, and then you get the resolution with Bruce regaining control, and then Batman and Robin takes place after that.
Oh.
Or at the very least, delay the book until after Gotham War is over. At that point, it only would have been a couple of weeks, maybe a month.
Uh,
But that's what I would have done personally, because now we're in that fiasco.
hmm.
But back to our main topic. The fanon is not that Tim was forgotten by the overall DC's landscape. It's the fact that he's kind of bland. He's the definitive Robin, he's the ideal partner. He just doesn't have any real depth to him, or at the very least, what little depth he had, Damian can replicate in a more complex and nuanced way.
It could also be like with in Tim's case that let's look at the purpose that he was created for.
Okay.
Like let's go back to A Lonely Place for Dying. That was
Okay.
set after death in the family. Batman was going to the deep end. He was and Tim recognized what he was happening, and he brought up that Batman needs a Robin, and
Yes.
his Nightwing was unwilling to revert back to that role. Tim took it over, and having learned from one of the mistakes with Jason, Tim was put into an actual full hard-on training, not just with under Bruce's rule, but also different teachers abroad, Lady Shiva included. And eventually, and then it was something that that Tim had worked to get that position his way into being Robin, and he was there with Batman to keep Batman in line. That's how most of the 90s went out. Then in the next 2000s, we got Cassandra's Batgirl was introduced. Damian was eventually introduced. Oracle was revealed to be Barbara, because I also just learned about this in another prodigious news with Robert. Again, go check Robert's channel. I know that Oracle was identity as Barbara was kept as a secret even from Batman and Robin for most of the 90s until it was revealed at some point.
And I believe Hush took place in 2002, 2005, somewhere around there.
Somewhere around that time. Batman's family grew. The whole purpose of why Tim was made to be a Robin, that reason has been pretty much being filled with multiple other characters, including Jason, who has now been brought back. Yes. Tim needing to keep Batman in line. There are so many other characters doing that job now for him that it's pretty much like come to that point that okay, it's probably because of the status quo where he is needed to remain as in the role, and the character has fans. But realistically, at that point, the character would have probably see it fitting to retire from the role, because he would see that his job is done and he could go to. He could have gone to college like he was during the plan to go during the Tinian the fourth run, Detective Comics run.
Yes, Tim and Steph were planning on going to college together before he was abducted by Mr. Oz.
His job was done. He had served his purpose, and he was now free to move on with his life. It's not that the character is bland. It wouldn't be that the character is bland. The character wasn't bland when he was introduced and when he was being brought up. It's the fact that his role has been filled with so many other characters now that he would be free to go live his life now outside of this side of Robin. Like,
I agree, but the last time they tried to tell that type of story, that was in the aftermath of Final Crisis. We got the iconic Red Robin run of 2009 during Batman Reborn. And even then, Tim was leaning more sort to be like Bruce, leaning more sort towards the darkness. So the best way I could see it, like, this would have been a great segue for Tim. Have him take a few years off, let the Bat family expand, Damian come into his own, and then reassess to see if Tim even wants to continue the superhero lifestyle at this point, or play a supporting role helping finance Wayne Enterprises and the Wayne estate. It would have been good. It would have been a decent way to retire the character for a while. They haven't really done anything decent with him outside of Rebirth since the New 52 anyway. And the less said about the Lobdell Teen Titans run, the better.
Yeah, for bare minimum, it was just Tim was pretty much just a guy who was giving them a roof to live under when they were not doing any superhero activities that were reinterpreted as villain activities, because all the collateral damage that happened because while they were trying to be present in everything.
I agree.
That's probably the bare minimum that we can talk about.
But again, Tim is not boring. Like Pika said, his role has been fulfilled by so many other parties. Jason Todd's return, Cassandra Cain to a degree, Damian especially. Like, you could literally just have Tim retire or move on with his life, and nothing within the larger Bat family dynamic would change. Would he still feel insecure? Even in God forbid I'm actually addressing this, but even in Dark Crisis Young Justice, as bad as that comic is, how petty and spiteful the dialogue in that comic is. It is specifically stated that Tim has moved on from his insecurity from Damian, quote unquote, snubbing him of the Robin mantle. It was just a boiling point from all the emotional whiplash from Bruce's supposed death, his full integration to the Bat family, the death of Jack Great by Captain Boomerang. Tim was going through so much, and Bruce was his confidant. The fact that he was Robin, the fact that he was a fan who actually joined the Bat family, it was a dream come true. And then Damian comes into the picture, and even then, Damian was just trying to prove a point. He wasn't even trying to kill Tim like that, but it was such a disheveling experience that he kind of spiraled into the superhero equivalent of an identity crisis, and it took him a while to get out of. But Dark Crisis Young Justice officially confirmed that he did, and he just wants the best thing for his little brother. At least as of the time of this recording. If any other storyline has Tim still acting that way, or Tim still bitter over what happened, it's either Wayne Family Adventures or an Elseworld story. But at least from what I've seen, Tim has actually acknowledged Damian as a Robin in his own right, and he's gotten over it for the most part. Or at the very least, he's matured enough to not hold a grudge. Pika, you want to add to that?
No, that I think that's fitting.
Fair enough. But even now, this final section is a new direction of where Tim could be. Now, if DC editorial tomorrow decides, like, okay, Fitzmartin was a disaster, Bernard didn't really gravitas with fans, how do we play this? And I'm just like, well, you burnt the bridge already. The only way you could possibly resolute this is if Bernard pulls a Mary Jane, especially in recent comics, to where he ultimately can't handle the pressure of the superhero lifestyle and leaves him, and Stephanie's there to pick up the pieces. That's literally the only way you can do it at this point.
Looking at how the whole series went out and where it was brought in, if they try to actually lean on and acknowledge and decide to admit that and hold on to the fact that they decided to turn Tim bi and not gay, he will probably see that, okay, being with Bernard didn't work out, and back to what worked.
Like, it wouldn't be that hard to do, but the only question is we don't know what happened. We kind of just skimmed over the whole thing because I guess Fitzmartin didn't want to be bogged down by that kind of story, or she was limited in whatever setup she was given in Batman Urban Legends. But either way, it just depends on whether or not the writing allows Stephanie to take Tim back or not.
Yeah. Or they could introduce also some, like, they pulled Bernard from the Bill Willing. Yeah, it was the it was in the, sorry, I have the TV tropes out that.
Take your time.
Bill Willingham's run from one issue 121 from 2004, and looks somewhat similar as that character, but there are other love interests that they could probably put up. Like they could bring Ariana back. They could bring, who was this character? Not that one. There was there's one character that was pretty much went nowhere that Adam Beach and tried to introduce in his run, Zoen, who was just didn't go anywhere. Lucius Fox's daughters, those probably don't work because how.
Wait, didn't they de-age Tiffany Fox and the I Am Batman run with David?
I think they did. This is the Tamara Fox. Is Tam Fox and different Fox, are they the same character or different? How many kids does Lucius Fox have?
Okay, he now has Jace, which was a callback to the 70s or pre-crisis, where Luke actually did have a brother. So they
Mhm.
brought him back. Luke, Tiffany, Tanya. I want to say that's four, unless there's a fifth one. I don't. Yeah, I want to say four.
Yeah, or they could do the whole how before New 52 happened, they tried to have give a team like his own so like a Catwoman like relationship with the new links.
He did. They did. I remember that.
Yeah,
I
they could
remember
try
that.
like Bernard didn't work. Okay, so to go with the bisexual characterization, they could have like okay from male love interest to female love interest. If that doesn't work, you get try with another male love interest, and then to female love like try that shuffling around. They could try pulling it like in that or something that they should also or try to do like if it's a bisexual character give him like two different love interest options, a male love interest and a female love interest, and have that be like will they, won't they? Like he spoke in the John Kent Super Sons video
Yeah, we
with
did. We brought
Ram.
up.
Yeah, on
We
on
brought up
have it be
Jay.
have that be like that. Give the like two different love interest options, and depending on how the story writing goes, how the readers come to see both characters, go with the one that that is more favored by the readers, and that is how it would work better. Like don't rush into a relationship like too soon. Just see how Tim's interactions with the character with the different two different characters go, and then we go with the more favorable option.
And for those who didn't catch the first shelf title video, basically we suggested how in the Vertigo comics, Midnight and Apollo had an adopted daughter. You could age up her up a few years and have a will they won't they between I forget her name. I'll have to go through TV tropes in a minute.
It's
But you know what? Let me go ahead and look this up. It'll just take a second.
uh,
Daughter of Midnighter
Jenny
and
Quantum.
Jenny Quantum. Thank you.
Or yeah.
Because yeah, Jenny Quantum. I now granted I wasn't really the biggest fan of Vertigo, so I wouldn't be able to fully characterize or give you a scenario or a summary of her personality. I just wouldn't be able to do that as of this recording. But if you had Jay Nakamura, Jenny Quantum, and John together, that would have made for a decent dynamic and actually, keep some of the tension a little bit rather than just, oh, I don't know, rushing a relationship for National Coming Out Day as a publicity stunt. Just me.
Yeah, that's pretty much how mangas do. Like not even just a slice of lives or romance mangas do it. But do it. Just have the main character have a larger cast of friends, and depending on how the writing goes with all those different characters, different love interest options, and other friends, that is how you could eventually make up the make decide who it goes. There is the whole shipping aspect on how the readers would see him with see the protagonist character with whichever supporting character there is. But at least that would help it be not rushed, and that is how also it would develop everyone. The entire cast would be developed in that sense. You are mute. You muted
Oh,
yourself.
okay. Thank you. But I actually think that would actually be an improvement to the story, not just in terms of the rom com aspect, but Jenny could be the voice of reason, or at least one John would be more inclined to listen to. Like, hey, Jay's hell bent on revenge. Bendix is a bad dude. This is this has gone too far. But John could feel conflicted, like he wants to get out of Clark's shadow, but he doesn't. He just feels conflicted, and maybe like, yeah, Jay. Even when he confronts him, Jay like, oh, I used you. Yeah, I definitely did. I'll be the first to admit that. Like, I need the muscle because Bendix won the elect. He abused his power. He enslaved my people. He implemented international contracts for post-human anti-metahuman weapons. Like, Bendix needs to be stopped. And it's essentially a Palpatine. Sorry, I hate if you're not a Star Wars fan. I understand that, but it's essentially a Mace Windu versus Palpatine situation to where he's too dangerous to be left alive, and how vengeance can ultimately consume a person. Now, you think Batman would be the one to tell this, but Batman's not exactly known for his empathy, at least conveying his empathy. Because let's be honest, Batman's kind of a dick, and like seriously, all Jay had to do was
at least they used Batman in the John
they
Kent
did,
series,
they did
like he came to tell. Yeah, he was the one who told John for the first to point out that Jay is a terrorist working with terrorists, and he was never acknowledged about having been right.
because that's not where the story was going. Because it wasn't a John story; it was a Jay Nakamura story.
Yeah,
Who wanted revenge on the man who experimented on him and tormented the people of his country.
the story moves the characters instead of the characters moving the story.
Pretty much. And even with Jenny Wren's inclusion, it really doesn't change much. Jenny Wren would Jenny Quantum. Jenny Quantum would just serve as another voice of reason. Like, hey, I know all that mess with City of Bane went down. Bruce isn't exactly Batman is exactly not the ideal father/mentor figure, but he's actually trying to help you here. So bad mouthing isn't really going to help your case at all. And so you could have a scene where Jenny and John confront Jay, like, I know what you've been doing. I've been investigating this. Were you just using me as muscle and publicity to help take down Bendix? And Jay openly admits this.
I'm looking at
Because
what power she has. Quantum reality manipulation. Besides being a voice of reason, how much could she also be able to force a situation, like if it came to a confrontation between?
Well, Jay's powers are mostly that he's intangible.
Mm-hmm. And quantum reality manipulation on Jenny's part, how would she would be able to, allowing her to achieve anything she can conceive at the quantum molecular level, has the ability to manipulate the laws of quantum dynamics, manipulate ambient energies, and accelerate her own age.
Apparently, in the New 52, she was 11 around the time of Future's End or post Flashpoint. She was de-aged to 11 in the New 52. So even then, it wouldn't be hard to do, ultimately, to incorporate her. It wouldn't be too hard if someone actually suggested it.
Not to mention, it says here, accelerate her own age. Like, because we also spoke about John being still being a 13, 4-year-old, 10-year-old in the body of an 18 to 19-year-old. If Jenny Quantum can also accelerate her age, she could actually be someone who is the same age as John but looks older than she actually is. That would have actually been something that they could connect with.
Definitely, especially on a friendship level. But again, I'm not a big fan of shipping myself. That's why. So if anyone's saying why he keeps saying friendship, that's why. I'm just not a big fan of shipping personally.
Yeah, I don't like. Yeah, the whole shipping part is also like.
But
if it's something that exists already, that's fine. If it's something that that's not that's.
As long as it's organic within the story, fine. But I'm not gonna put bets on it or anything like that.
Yeah.
But in a confrontation, I would say that Jay. It was just that Jay's not the type of antagonist or dual antagonist to warrant a confrontation. He's a gaslighter. He's a manipulator. All these other things. Like Bendis is doing bad things. He needs to be stopped. But that doesn't mean Jay is not misguided in his actions. whether it be out of conflicted feelings or genuine compassion, John would want to redeem Jay, at least to some degree. So, Tevye, you're probably going to rant in the comments when I say this, but regardless of the love triangle, Jay does not get exposed or thrown in jail after the Bendis arc. You might tease a redemption if Son of Kal-El never got canceled. I might do a new direction on it if you really want to go in more detail, but I don't think too much of the story would change, other than the fact that you wouldn't have the 5G stuff, and you would already have your certain integrations because with Jenny Wren being in John's supporting cast, Apollo and Midnighter would play a role, and Apollo and Midnighter, well, mostly Midnighter, would kick Jay's ass.
Yeah. Or try to some kind of point unless the intangibility is turned off.
Well, Apollo could just speed blitz him, but I was trying to keep it PG.
Yeah, it would actually be something like Batman probably wouldn't be one thing to try look out for his friend's kid, but
Well,
and Superman is being like too okay with the whole fact because again story moves the characters moving the story. But yeah, like having two aggressive masculine gay dads go after their daughters' friends abusive or toxic gaslighting,
manipulative. Let's say manipulative.
manipulating gaslighter. That would be like something that would be a sight to behold.
And you wouldn't really be able to argue against it because, well, Jay did do all those things. Even when John confronted him, he openly admitted to doing it. Just because you gained an attraction after the fact doesn't change the fact that you still did it. And then we can have like a wait, Apollo. Okay, how would the super family react to this? Because you beat up Jay, and I can see at Midnighter saying like you refused to arrest him despite his crimes, and all he did was get on a blog and bad that we both. I can't say for obvious reasons, but Midnighter would not be that pleasant. Like seriously. He was an international. Jay was from Gamora. I forget the country, Gamora. He found a way to the continental U.S. He was smuggled there before his fellow posthumans were abducted and taken into the Suicide Squad. He laid low for months, if not years on end. He started a truth blog, and then he, like, for all intents and purposes, if Jay wasn't the main villain, he should have been the secondary antagonist.
Yeah, if Jordan was the main character of his own story, like the revelation and confession from Ye would have been that should have been a heartbreaking moment for Jon. Like his first
real
relationship after and it turns out that it was all gaslit manipulation. That should have been a heartbreaking moment.
And you could have like Jenny Quantum, Jenny Quantum be there to pick up the pieces. And I'm like, and yeah, Jenny was raised by Midnight Apollo. She's seen the darker side of DC and even the Vertigo universe. So she does have a more jaded outlook compared to John or even Clark himself. So she understands what Jay's trying to do, but the way he's going about it is terribly misguided. And even then, it's just revenge. And if Bendis has a contingency plan in place, if he doesn't take the whole country of Gamora with him, it'll definitely result in casualties. But Jay just wants his revenge, and he doesn't care. But Jay and the Revolutionaries just want their revenge, and he doesn't care. Like, seriously, that's a story arc in of itself.
Yes.
I'm not saying you turn Jay Nakamura into a full Terra Markov, but basic story structure at the very least. Pika, you want to add to that, or you good?
Yeah, I think we're good. That's
But all in all, any real potential for Tim Drake. He's not going to have the same notoriety as he did back in the 90s and the 2000s. It's just
yeah,
not going to
it's
be the same.
yeah. Unless they try to, unless DC would want to actually reboot the whole continuity again, and or rewind it back to a point before some of the more modern stories happened, where his parents are still alive, and he would try to hide the fact that he's being a Robin. And that would make it again. It would be a rehash of the original run, but otherwise, it's not. For all intents and purposes, Tim has pretty much just served his purpose as a character that he was created as, and
Yes.
trying to have him be whatever else. That's pretty much
It's
that has been
hard to
tried.
do.
There have been too many bad ideas, and it hasn't led anywhere.
That is true.
Unless they try to make him Red Robin again and pick up for where the
2009 run
pre-Flashpoint
left
time,
off.
the pre-Flashpoint left off, that would be one thing. But if they not even want to, if DC is not willing to, or even trying to make him be Red Robin again, then the character would be better off just being retired and given to have a life as just Tim Drake, or send him off to be in that college he was supposed to be taken. Have him build up his character with outside of the out of Bat being a member of Bat family, and bring him back for some reunion stories or other events like on his own. Yeah, Tim, it doesn't work on his own. Tim is a supporting character who should probably just remain as a supporting character.
I feel like Tim and John are relatively the same. Their IPs aren't strong enough to carry on their own 2 feet, but they work better as supporting characters.
Yeah,
Whereas Tim is
work with someone else. That helps it. Some characters work better when they are partnered up with another character.
and Tim and Tim and John, excuse me, Tim and John are just one of those few. Now, Tim has his moments, but he's never going to carry that main character energy like that. At least now with Damien in the picture. Now when we were coming up, say 10, 15 years ago, yeah, Tim carried a whole whole main ongoing series with over 100 issues. But we're not in that setting anymore.
Yeah.
And that's just the brutal truth of it. But this was a great discussion, man, but I got my 170 subscriber special coming up where I'm actually gonna review main plot points from the Insomniac Spider-Man 2 video game. It's gonna be a chill stream, and hopefully we'll have a good time. And Pika, any final thoughts before we get to our last segment?
It's just well, again, like did I say already that the fact that Tim is actually let's also point out that Tim is as a character who volunteered to become Robin. Bruce, he's someone that Bruce did not just go out on the and recruit for himself. Dick was someone who he came across at a tragic point. Jason is someone who he found and decided to give him a better way. And Tim is the one who who came to him and said, "You need a Robin." And when the chips fell down, when Jack Drake learned that about what his son was doing and forced and was ready to blackmail Bruce about what he was doing, Tim was free and willing to just quit. He had volunteered for the position as Robin, and when push came to shove, Batman, although with heavy hearts and not liking the fact, allowed him to quit. Tim has the power to quit.
Yeah, he could leave anytime he wants. He's even rebranded multiple times. He's even regressed back to Robin multiple times. And there is hardly any communication with the editorial staff. but that's a separate topic for a different day.
Mm.
All in all, the only real way Tim's character can move forward is if he actually acknowledges his mistakes, to where I had a good opportunity. Steph and I had a good thing, and I threw it away over ego and an insecurity I had towards my little brother, which was circumstantial at best. At least that would be an in-universe way to go about it.
Mm.
And then, even as I was discovering myself and coming to terms, this is Tim Drake, mind you. Tim pretty much rebounded in an attempt to make himself feel better. Granted, Bernard came onto him. Tim just seized an open opportunity, but a spade's a spade. Let's be honest.
Mm.
And that's just the most organic way to go about it. Tim acknowledges his mistake. He may not be able to rekindle a relationship with Stephanie, but he can at least acknowledge he was in the wrong.
Mm.
And whether he wants to continue superheroing or whether or they decide to shelve him for a time, that's ultimately what editorial will decide.
Mm.
We have no control over that. He'll still appeal in Elseworld stories here and there, but ultimately,
for the
Tim's just not
mainstream version, for the mainstream version, it will probably be for the best that he doesn't get some time off. Retire for a few time, some time. Let the time go by. Let the fandom actually and some people who actually have an idea on what to do with him to start missing the character, and then when eventually they decide to bring him back, like they have brought back some other characters who are not in a, or not being brought back, have it be like something that he has actually grown as a character, be an older and somewhat more wiser, because de-aging him like that's we have seen it not being something that anyone wants to see.
And it's kind of puzzling to me because Tim should be at the very least post-adolescent, if not his early 20s, but they keep regressing him back to 17 and Damien's getting older. And I'm just like,
yeah, that's actually something like also the same thing. Like in Red Robin, when Tim became Red Robin in the pre-New 52 continuity, he was like established that he was 18 then. He was
yes,
he was an adult.
yes,
And that was when Damien was 10 years. If Damien
yes,
is in a high school age of 14 to 15 now, Tim should be now in his early 20s.
20 to 20, 22 to 23, somewhere around there.
Yeah, somewhere around there.
Definitely early 20s. And even so, like if DC wants to continue the Bernard relationship, hey, if you're getting, as long as it's an engaging story, as long as you're actually garnering some kind of profit, hey, I have no control over that. But even with that, a little character development goes a long way. Is what I'm trying. This is the core of what I'm trying to say. Either let the character return. Now, shelving a character solves nothing because all you're gonna do is put them in a box somewhere and attempt to like, oh, where's this character? Why is not he showing up? It creates intrigue, but if not many people are talking about a character, he's just gonna fall off the ether and be forgotten about in its entirety. Shelving a character is a fool's gambit to create some kind of intrigue from that character's missing impact. Now, if you officially said in the story to where, hey, I'm hanging up the Robin costume, I'm going to go back to and reapply for Ivy League and have Tim retire for a while, then that would be an organic send off. That would be a proper send off. And I pretty much agree with just about everything you said, Pika. That would just be the most organic way to go about it. But I want to end this on a more positive note because for this retrospective, we went for the ringer with you guys. So, okay, we're gonna name top 5 best moments or most tolerable moments going for these comic books, whether it be any aspect of Tim Drake we've collected recently and ones from recent years, and then we'll cover the 5 worst. Pika, which ones you want to do?
Best and worst on the. I mean, like the on everything we went through.
Everything we went through, yes.
Okay. Some of the best ones are. Okay, are there many, or are they balanced each other out, or
Because we've covered Tim Drake Robin, we've covered Batman Urban Legends, a backup story, but I'm gonna go ahead and count Batman Urban Legends as a whole. Bendis Young Justice, Tynan's Detective Comics run, and we referenced briefly Tom King with the 5G setup, 5G / Future State.
okay? If we pick up the some few good things. Why am I drawing a blank here? I'm trying to think about. Okay, I'm going through all the. I'm mentally going through like every single like the runs, throughs, and okay. How about you start instead? I'll
Okay,
pick it
that's
up.
fair. That's fair. Okay, my 5 best, and these are in no particular order. My 5 best were reliving the Robin 1993 series because that run, and even in the early 2000s, that took me back to some of my childhood. Tim Drake, the school element with the whole slice of life, Peter Parker. Though those storylines are always treasure, even even the worst ones, even the worst ones. So that's my number 5. My number 4 is definitely Robin '09 because that's classic. Red Robin '09. Number 3 would just be the Tynan run in general because it actually improved the character, gave him some kind of progression, and how I'm not as needed anymore. I'm just going to take the next stage before everything got derailed by Mr. Oz, Doomsday Clock, and everything with Future State / 5G. So there was at least some momentum for the character. Number 2, this is a hard one. I already talked about the Robin '90s run. Number 2, I actually got recently watched a YouTube video on Chuck Dixon and his reaction to the whole thing, so that was an interesting watch. I know that's a little meta, but hey, it's my list. And the number 1, the best thing about this adventure was not only collabing with Pika, but just going through some of the worst of recent comics and just having a good laugh. Now, as for the worst, oh boy, here we go. Rereading Megan Fitzmartin, Dark Crisis, Young Justice. I reread Dark Crisis, Young Justice for you people. Jesus Christ. Oh, don't say I wouldn't do anything for you for a collab, Pika.
Yeah.
Oh God. Okay. All right. What was another bad thing? The Drake suit. I'm sorry, but that suit was hot garbage. But that suit is hot garbage. The wasted potential with the Red Robin cameo with the Kingdom Come issue. John Ridley's Robin's run. And I'll probably do a review of that story on my own someday. But the number 1 worst thing was the number 1 worst thing about this experience. Just the fact that Tim's character is just stagnant, and when you've grown up with an IP and it's not really going anywhere due to being mismanaged, you just hate to see it. That's really the only thing I can say.
Yeah. Okay, and thanks for giving me the criteria on what to focus on now, by the way.
Appreciate it.
I would also like to go for the entire 1993 series. Is going through that story that was also a great experience as a teen hero, similar to how Peter Parker Spider-Man and like characterization for Tim in trying to keep his activities hidden from his parents while he was working with Batman. That intrigue that was fun to go through. Then eventually also the growing up family dynamic bit that was okay. The New 52 Teen 2 was not overall. It was not great for team it seemed, but at least it was somewhat shown that there was the Bat family dynamic between all the Robins and Batman himself. There was that family dynamic that they were brothers under a father who had brought them together and made them a family. That is also some great stuff to see. And this is also like going back with the three to the fifth to number 5, but the scene whole the development of the relationship between Tim and Stephanie was also because it started out when Tim was also in a relationship with Ariana Hana, and he had to hold himself back to be an honorable man, not cheating on his girlfriend behind his back while having a single interaction with someone else. But eventually, it was something that was held back, and when it was held back, it was developed. That was a relationship that was allowed to develop and bloom up to the point where Chuck Dixon probably saw that the fans preferred Stephanie over Ariana, and when that mutual breakup happened and they entered a relationship, that was a relationship that was not perfect, but it was something that was as a journey, and that was we were brought into that was also something good in how it was made. In Red Robin series, I also enjoyed the how Tim was also he was pretty much now well his father was dead, and he was now the adopted son of Bruce Wayne, and he was holding on to that new father and family dynamic that he had, and being the only one who believed that Bruce was not dead. That dedication to his new father and bringing him back, and the eventual reunion after Batman RIP was over, that also was also a great journey brought back and see, and yeah, Detective Comics run in a 2016 Rebirth. That was pretty much also the culmination of Tim Drake's character being brought in the best of both worlds from the pre-New 52 and the New 52. They were the James Dinian the Forge Detective Comics run, even with the whole Dr. Mr. Oz thing that brought him out, but then when he brought back, that would have been the whole of Dinian's run. That is where Tim's character could have been retired. We also agreed that is where that is how Tim could have been like the final send off, that he had served his purpose. He had helped Batman in his lore mythos and played the role he was created for. He was free. He would have been freed. Okay, and then the bad stuff. Okay, so if I go from not so bad to the actual bad.
However you want to structure it.
Yeah. After the 1 year later stuff, there was something that were the character was made too much like Batman and more like Bruce, to go darker, and even if that was meant to be like a characterization and other stuff, that wasn't best of it. And not to mention the love interest that was created for him in that series. that was also like going too much back and forth and not exactly developing into anything. And then Stephanie was brought back, and even when they had a great reunion, that didn't get to anywhere. That relationship didn't get a new chance to go anywhere because Batman RAP was happening, and that previously thing I mentioned about Stephanie not keeping Tim in the dark about what Batman had trusted her to hold for Batman RAP, that caused them to break up. That was not fun to see. And when it comes to the then for the fourth, New 52's Teen Titans and Scott Lobdell's doing, Tim was more or less just the guy, like I said, the guy who gave them a roof to live under. That was pretty much it. Like Tim could have been a completely different character than him, and who was just funding them or giving them a house to live in, and then it goes even further down. Let's put Young Justice here in the here. Yeah, the whole thing with Young Justice, the missed opportunity with the Red Robin cameo and making him be Drake instead. Not to mention, it went the so slow progress, plot progression in the whole series. Like it was going at snail's pace. Nothing worthwhile was happening in it, and it's just nothing.
So it was just a real drag for you.
Yeah, it was a drag. Like if it was total like better like in the night, something positive to say about the pre-New 52 stories. At least there were like some time gaps or time skips between issues that you could tell that there were that the time was going between the issues as they were happening. Sometimes there were cliffhangers that were followed up in the next issue, but nope, just an alert. Okay, but when every issue ends with a cliffhanger that follows that the next issue then follows, and it goes like that, that's a snail's pace thing, and that would be pretty much what we have also gone failed and rejected the Netflix pitches. Like stories that they wanted to make as movies or TV shows that were rejected, and instead they were turned into comics that don't work in it. And the final part, let's just like everything that happened with Megan Fitzmartin. That can be the 2 and 1 of the worst stuff. Whatever what she did to in making Tim be bi while writing him as just being gay, and then her whole 10-issue series where nothing worthwhile happened. It was just some events that were done for like LOL random stuff and Tumblr fan fiction and crack fiction moments that would be like a joke. No. There's a reason why it's a good thing that Spider-Man 2 came out while I was reading it, because I read like 2/3 of it, then played Spider-Man 2 in the middle, and then finished the series yesterday.
What'd you think of it?
Might as well have been a YA novel. Out of continuity YA novel that tried to emulate the mainstream status quo.
That's probably the closest this series will ever get to a compliment, not gonna lie. But
because like the Batman Nightcrawler, that was a story about Bruce Wayne before he becomes Batman. That then the whole other YA novels, they were the whole YA novels. They were just the characters in their youth before they become the characters that we know them as. If they want to do like what those YA novels, just use the characters who are at that age bracket.
I agree. You might as well. But anything else you would like to add before we wrap up here?
Well, not on to Tim himself, but probably just whatever I might as well do some self-advertisement and say that I'm currently working on 5 different video scripts that I have that I'm not actually prioritizing, but I try to get a Throne of Atlantis video out before the Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom comes out.
Same. I'm actually behind on a few video titles myself. I even recently hit 170.
Make sure some of one of those subscribers is not someone who has alternate accounts. I had a 5 subscriber drop during October because one of those decided to destroy his accounts, and it went from 263 to 158. I have since recovered those because apparently the Under the Red Hood video was a popular, but drops like that, those are just.
Well, that's good, man. I'm glad it worked out for you. But with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, thank you once again for another video. Please like, comment, subscribe. Also, be sure to check out Pikashades. Great guy. Welcome on the channel anytime. And flame off.
And may you have your let me try.
Okay.
Wonderbat.
Sorry, I had to. Now, have a good night, everybody.